Joining us for part 2 of this podcast is Grandpa JP, who just walked in the door from Iowa after days and days of travel. Great timing. Welcome.
Glad I could be here.
Amazing. Grandpa, I would love to know, what is the story that you tell about yourself?
This is the story from the perspective of an 80-year-old looking back.
Right.
It would be very different if the story was being told frontwards,
right,
a day at a time. What I have come to understand and appreciate is that I am one of the most loved people in the world. And that started the day I was born. When I was born, I had 5 older sisters from 7 to 13. And in those days, you know, you couldn't buy a doll that cried, laughed, and wet its pants. I could do all that. And so I had...
You were the best doll they ever had.
I was. I was cuddly. My next older brother was not. He didn't want to be held at all. I was very willing to be held. So, yeah, I had 5 sisters and a mother. Now, to balance that, I had 2 brothers.
Right.
I had 2 older brothers to balance that a little bit. But I've only come in later life to appreciate the fact that from day one, I was loved. Mm-hmm. And today I recognize, you know, this is part of my story. Today, if I meet somebody, I expect them to like me on my good days. If they don't, I can say to myself, I hope they get better soon. Yeah, because that's my life experience. I expect to be loved. And I know how rare that is. I have come to appreciate how rare that is.
Yeah, you didn't always know that everyone else wasn't getting that.
Well, you know, what I say is, love to me had all the meaning of water to a fish. Why would you talk about it? It's all around us, mm-hmm. you know. And that
the fish doesn't know it needs the water until it's out of the water. And, yeah.
Right, and that's the way it was with me with love. I didn't know you needed it because I always had it. Mm-hmm. You know, I when I grew up, financially we were very poor. Never missed a meal or anything like that because my parents worked very hard. You know, we had 3.5 acres of garden. Dad would butcher a pig at least once a year, and so we always had food. I never starved. I knew what to wear to school. I wore the other pair because I had 2 pairs.
2 pairs, yeah.
And so I wore one, and one was in the wash. You know, so it makes it very easy. Yeah. And when I was living through it, I thought about all the things that I missed, the things I didn't have. Looking back, today I explained it as the only thing I didn't have was money. I had everything else that was important. And I see that today. And I got an appreciation of that in college. I lived in a 4-man dormitory room. And I mean a room, not a suite like you have today.
Right.
I have one room, 4 of us in there.
Uh-huh. What year was this?
That was my freshman year in college. And 1959, the fall of 1959. And one of them came from a broken home and never lived with his father. One was the son of a very well-to-do doctor from Chicago. And one was a sports star in college on an athletic scholarship. Well, money and athletics were something I thought I really would like to have. Yeah. Well, the one that came from a broken home got me to appreciate the fact that I had both my parents, mm-hmm. and that they loved me. The one that had the money, the doctor's son, had never once in his life played catch with his father. And that to me was so sad, mm-hmm. you know, that he didn't have a fun relationship with his father. And I did. My father was 46 when I was born. But I remember him playing with me, and doing these things. So I learned that my roommate that was the athlete thought that was the only reason he was appreciated. Mm-hmm. He was there on a football scholarship, and the college dropped football our sophomore year, and he didn't know he had any value after that. And there was a sadness to that. And so I came to appreciate my parents and recognize that there was so much that I had that I never appreciated. And I wrote a letter to my parents expressing this appreciation. I would always get an answer within a week of any letter I wrote. I didn't get a response on that one. Mom didn't write back. And so the next time I went home, which was months later, I said, Mom, how come you got the letter I wrote? How come you never responded to it? She said, I put it in the drawer with the ones from your older brothers. That each of the three of us had written a letter back to them. Expressing appreciation for all those things we took for granted. And so I'm very blessed to have those lessons in front of me at a developmental stage of my life. Mm-hmm. And through that and through the recovery program I'm in, I have learned that happiness is not what you have or what you don't have. Happiness is based on what you appreciate, what you're grateful for that you have. And so many people go through life, and I did it, in my early years, I did it too, looking at all the time at what you don't have, instead of looking at, this is what I do have. This is what I have. And every time I look at what I have, it's enough. I have never wanted. I desired, but I never needed. I had everything I needed. And there's a completeness to that. I'm just very grateful. I'm grateful to each of my 5 sisters. They each provided me something different in my life because of the family relationships. They each provided me something different. But all of them provided me love. And that today I appreciate. And my parents love me. My parents were, Dad was 46 when I was born, and Mom was 41 when I was born. So they were older, but they were also very energetic. They basically lived with the sun. They got up with the sun and went down with the sun, and were very busy during that time, worked very hard. But my dad also played hard. When he wanted to play, he played. I mean, he would play cards, and I remember him playing softball at an American Legion picnic. He had to be in his 50s when I remember it, right? And he did that, and he joked, and my father enjoyed life, and I think that's a big part of what my mother appreciated about my dad, was that he brought that joy to her life, because she was more the serious one. She was the more serious one of the two of them. She appreciated humor. She loved humor, but that wasn't her natural inclination, where Dad was. Dad just enjoyed every minute and was always looking to enjoy life. And so I appreciated that in him. He took us, we played catch, we went hunting and fishing, though he wanted us to be quiet when we fished. And I didn't do that very well, so I gave up fishing. But the other thing, he participated. He was in my life and was an important part of it. Those are some of the things that I see looking back today. I see my parents exceedingly loving. Mom's quote was, Mom would always say, people need love the most when they deserve it the least. And she lived that. And she lived that. She lived that with each of us. She had 9 living children, plus 2 that had died earlier. But she lived that with each of the 9 of us, and that we were loved when there was when there was no reason for that to be the reaction. And so I heard that and I saw it in action. It was a wonderful, wonderful thing. And today, after hearing many people's stories, I have come to realize how rare it is, how totally rare it is, and how blessed I was. And also, I met this wonderful woman. I met this wonderful girl.
Oh, how old were you when you met?
15.
I was 14. She was 15 when we met.
Yeah. I have a follow-up question.
Go for it, Grammie. Ask a question.
Yeah, I do. How would you define or describe all the different roles that you have played in people's lives? I mean, you've done your siblings and your parents, but now from then on.
You've been son, brother,
father, grandfather, employee.
I've been an employee. Career-wise, I did well. I never wanted to be on the management side. I like the technical side. I had as many as, so I had a successful career, and I helped a lot of my co-workers be better. Mm-hmm. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that I think I helped them to be better. So I had a good career. I worked for what at the time was the best company in the world to work for. I worked for IBM at the time when they really were the top employer from a standpoint of how they treated. When Grandma was sick, I took long lunch hours every day because I could go see her and then still be home at night after work for the kids. And so that was those kind of things that wouldn't have happened in a lot of companies. If I left at 11 for lunch and came back at 1 or 1:30, that was okay. Now on other days I put in all those hours. At other times, well, the company never got short in hours. I gave them a lot of hours too, but that was a fair relationship. So I got that. As a brother, I got more, I think, than I gave. My brother Jim, who was a year and a half older than I am, allowed me to tag along. I ran more with his friends than I did with mine. Now, over time, as we got a little older, they melded. So his friends, my friends, were our friends, and we had this group. But he let me be a part, and he never complained about it. He never gave me the feeling that I was tagging along. And so I'm not sure I gave back that much, I'm not sure I gave any of my siblings what they gave me, So that's, to some degree, a sadness that I have, that I didn't. Now, today, we have the family emails.
Oh, yeah.
And
the famous family emails.
So we communicate every day, and I think that's that is a part of how I can give back to my siblings today, is by communicating to them and let them share in my life.
Have you expressed your gratitude to any of them from your growing up?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I definitely have to some of them. I don't know. Well, 3 of my sisters are now dead. My oldest sister, Eleanor, who died recently, within the last year. I owe her so many meals; it's incredible.
Right.
Because we would go out hunting and things, and show up at her place at lunchtime, and she would always feed us.
Yep.
which was good. However, that would be one. Well, it wouldn't be one. It'd be 2, 3, or 4 of us that would be hunting together, and we would just show up there. And
because she was so much older and already had a home of her own,
right,
family of her own, and
yeah. And so my sister Lillian, she had my dad's sense of humor, and so she made life fun. She became a registered nurse, but never ever lost that sense of humor. Even though she worked at St. Mary's Hospital, most of whose patients were there to go to Mayo Clinic and would do their recovery. And so she saw some people with very serious physical diseases or accidents, but she never lost her sense of humor. She loved pro wrestling. I mean, just because she knew it was nonsense, but she loved it, yes. And she invited my brother Jim and I to go up and spend a week with her, and we were going to go to the wrestling match, but there wasn't any wrestling match that week, so we ended up at a hockey game. And so we all enjoyed that hockey game. This is at a very low level, pro level.
Sure.
And my sister Florence, who is Sister Ann today, so she's my sister's sister. We had a good relationship. We just always did. We could communicate. Well, I guess the one time we didn't. I don't know if I'll get into that or not. Was when I changed my mind about being a priest. So.
Thanks for that, by the way.
Yeah.
For not being a priest.
You have a vested interest.
Yeah. In being alive? Yes, yeah. I do.
And so that was the only time we had a disagreement.
Yeah.
And it was about that, because she was disappointed to some degree. But we got through that, and we lived on the south side of the Chicago area at this time. She was teaching in the south side of the city of Chicago, and so she got to know Jeannie as a person. And I think she really came to appreciate what I saw in you.
That you had made a good decision.
I think so. Yes, I really do. So, my sister Eileen, I lived with for 2 summers. And that was an experience, because I didn't know what was going on there. I didn't understand that my brother-in-law was an alcoholic, very active alcoholic. And they had a crazy relationship. They loved each other, but their relationship made no sense. And I didn't know what it was at the time. I didn't understand that. My sister Millie, she was pretty much one of the guys. She was only 2 years older than my oldest brother.
What's not to love about Millie?
Yeah, and
she's like Grandma.
Yeah, Millie is very much like Grandma. She had been sick with rheumatic fever, so at times she was considered weak, if you would. But we played, we had fun. My brother Mark was 4 years older than I am. We didn't have a real close relationship. We did things together, but I had a much closer relationship with Jim, the one that's 1.5 years older than I am. And my younger brother, I allowed him to do some tagging along with me, but he was that much younger that we didn't always have the opportunity, because some of the things that I would be doing would be inappropriate for him to do it, to be involved in.
Like buying fireworks from across state lines.
Yeah, which we did on 3 or 4 occasions.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did not take him along on that.
Right.
Yeah.
The other, correct me if I'm wrong, but the other roles I imagine have been important for you to be in your life are friend and maybe sponsor.
Oh, yeah. Well, as a father, I loved being a father. I think I did a fairly decent job.
Yeah, very good.
Mom, very good.
One of the things that helped is, they had a good mother. And nothing makes being a good father easier than having a good mother involved. And I appreciate that. But I like to be involved. I figured it out that I coached over 50 seasons.
Oh my
gosh.
gosh. So neat. That's so neat.
Of baseball, basketball, softball. Softball, right. But I always enjoyed working with the kids at every level.
And he still does.
Okay, the best job in the world. The best job in the world is being a grandfather. It's all the fun of being a parent without the responsibility. Yeah. And so that was good. But one of the things I remember, and this was primarily Katie and James, they would come running, and I'd get down on one knee, and they would come running and leap into my arms.
Oh.
And I remember thinking and saying at the time that I don't want to be God's child. I want to be God's grandchild. I want to have that faith to come running and jump knowing that I'll be caught. You know, and that's a very important symbolism that I got out of that. Absolutely. Because it was such an experience. Of course, as I got older, I had to brace myself better. Right?
They did that now.
Yeah. I enjoyed every one of my grandchildren. And each of them are very different. Each child is different. Each child is uniquely themselves. And I love each of them for it. And I probably have spent more time with James and Alyssa because of the closeness. I think I've spent quite a bit of time with you and Sam because we've made a real strong effort.
Yeah.
And we've made the effort with Mike and Steph and the girls. But they also had grandparents that are there locally that provided a lot. It's the best to see our grandchildren grow and become the people they are. I have to sit back and say, dang, must have done something right. Must have done something right.
They all are amazing.
Yeah. And so we love all of you dearly. Dearly. So that's the grandparenting role. Over the years of doing all this, I realized that I like teenagers. A lot of adults my age are afraid of teenagers. I enjoy them. I enjoy the life they bring. And so I have been an Alateen sponsor for over 20 years. Because they are children that most of them have grown up in alcoholic homes. Some of their stories are very sad. But they still bring life, and they can bring joy, and they can appreciate joy. Within the program, they are heard. And for some of them, it's the first time they've ever been heard. For some of them, it's the first time they really spoke and had somebody listen to what they say. So it's very rewarding to me to be an Alateen sponsor. That one is critical. I also sponsor older guys. It helps me to understand the program better because I have to understand it better if I'm going to help them understand it. And so that's very rewarding. I think I've helped them understand the good parts of who they are. And because many of us grow up being dismissive of what we are. We know all our bad points. We can list them. Yeah.
You think people experience that, or men specifically?
I think it's both. Women probably come to see it sooner. Okay. Men don't see it. Men tend to not look inside.
Well, men are not raised or encouraged to do as much emotional understanding. Right. Yeah.
And so, I can, through the program, just following the program, because the program invites us to a different way of life. And in doing that, part of that different way of life is appreciating the gifts that you have, which always comes back to our higher power, our God, I can only show gratitude to God for those things that I see and appreciate. You know, so I have to look at what's good in my life, what's good about me, so I can thank my God for giving me those things. And I help men try to understand that and to view their life that way. And I think most of the guys that I have sponsored, I think they have come a long way. And today they're my friends, as opposed to sponsee. They're just my element friends. So that's very good for it.
One thing Mama and Grammie and I were talking about earlier is the role of storytelling in this family. And we basically concluded that it started with your family of origin, because Grammie said her family wasn't a big storytelling. So, whether we're recording or not, this is what we do when we spend time together, is talk like this and tell stories.
Yeah.
So I wonder, from your perspective, what do you see the role of storytelling being in our family? Like, what do you see it do for our family?
Well, I think storytelling helps us to understand the other person, appreciate the other person. Most of our storytelling, I think, brings humor into the relationship.
Oh, yeah.
And I see a lot of these things. I think it does. I think it came from my father. Explicitly, I think it came from my father, because he could tell stories. That was the way he shared who he was and what was important. I think that's what we try to do within our family. I think most of our storytelling is meant to be enjoyable. And historical, because
I think it has a role of connecting. Because what I said earlier to them before you got here was that it's, for me, helps me to understand like who I came from, because there's so many people I've never met, but their stories are intertwined with mine, even, and so it's a connector to the past, but also each other right now as we're sitting here.
Yeah, because I have an understanding of what the Great Depression was, though it was over before I was born. Because of the storytelling within my family. I have a great appreciation for what it was. I'm also amazed at how people lived through it. And it still influences. That storytelling is an influence. We recycle and reuse. And that was part of the mentality of the Depression. Throw away nothing. And so where does that come from? It came from our history.
The stories were passed down.
The stories that were passed down.
And just the way we lived.
Yeah.
The way we learned to live.
Right, yeah. We lived it because our parents were greatly influenced by the Great Depression. They had children.
Trying to feed.
Yeah. My parents were married for 4 years when the Depression started. Though Dad, in the business he was in, he was a shoe repair person. So his business somewhat grew because people couldn't afford new shoes. They had to repair them.
Yeah.
It was after the Second World War that the shoe repair business went down because people would throw them away and get new ones, right? Rather than fix them. Have you ever had shoes fixed?
No.
Yeah. That's it. Some of us would have shoes repaired many, many times. Yeah. I don't know how many soles of the shoes I've gone through, or the heels, but the rest of the shoe was good, so you kept it.
Grammie, as the matriarch of the family, what do you see the role of stories being for us?
Learning, understanding, connectedness, humor, just fun, laughter. And then, the realities of life.
Yeah, one of the models in CMM is the loop model. So that's the one that covers from your stories lived to your stories told, and in between that being the unknown stories, the untold stories, the untellable stories. And I think it's easy probably for, we've talked about stories of sickness and things like that. And I think those are probably easy for families, for people to let those be the untellable stories for probably a number of different reasons. But I think making those part of the stories that are told is really important because, when I said, who are you? Tell me your story. You included those. Like, they're significant to be included.
It wouldn't be fair not to.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm appreciative for the range of stories that we tell. Include them all. For both of you, what has travel done for you? What did it mean to do all your travels as someone who's about to embark on my own travels?
Travel to me is flat out enjoyment. I always want to see the other side of the mountain.
Yep. Because there might be a castle over
there. Who knows what's on the other side? You know, how could you be there and not want to know the other side? I mean, so it's, to me, I have this curiosity of what else is going on.
Mm-hmm. I think the word curiosity has come up in every single podcast I've done, and I very much appreciate that as a thread, because that's something I'm coming to really, really value.
It's a good trait. I think curiosity causes us to expand our world, and that's what I think travel has done for us. You know, we got married and moved immediately to New York. You know?
I told that story.
And you know, so that was the beginning. We got married in June, and we went on our first trip over Labor Day.
No,
Labor Day we went to
Arcadia. When did we go to New York City and almost get run over?
Well, that might have been July. It was July. You're right.
July,
New York was first.
Because I asked Grammie, I said, "What was the first trip you went on?" And so I was going to say,
you're right. You know, it was going down to New York City. Yep.
I said, that sounds like Grandpa to have the confidence. An Iowa boy with the confidence. I can drive in New York City.
Sure, why not?
I'm unsurprised. Not surprised at all.
Yeah, that was the 4th of July weekend. We went down there. Then the Labor Day weekend, we went to Acadia.
I got those two correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So those were our first trips. We did not grow up with an ocean. Yeah. There's very few oceans in Iowa.
Very few, yeah.
So, you know, so for us to go to Acadia and see the Maine coast was remarkable, and then it became harder to travel as we had the kids. We would travel mainly back and forth to Iowa from wherever we lived. But when it really got into travel, I had all this vacation saved up, and IBM wanted people to use up this accumulated vacation. And to encourage us, if you took a day off, you get paid your vacation day, but you could cash in one of the other days. So that gave us time and money.
Oh, yeah.
So we did a ton of 4-day weekends.
Oh, yeah.
We did a lot of 4-day weekends.
What time frame was that?
That would have been in the late 80s.
Well, the kids were growing, right?
Yeah.
So after 90. So early 90s, because Paul graduated.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think so.
I'd have to look at my book.
Yeah, so probably 90, 91.
Yeah.
In the first part of 92.
I think it was a good connectedness for the two of us as much as an adventure. And I learned to appreciate the beauty, or the physical beauty of nature, all the places that we've been, and to appreciate the God that I think helped formed all this, the uniqueness of it and the specialty. When we took our RV trip, we went to Rocky Mountain National Park, and that's where we ended up the last trip we took was back there. So I think I felt like we came full circle. We still have a few to do, but I think it did help us connect to and something that we both appreciated and enjoyed doing together. Not always on the same time frame, but like I said, you know, you asked the question last night about what I don't remember.
So, like, what advice do you have for travel? Being a good travel buddy to your partner.
I have one more piece of advice.
I'm ready.
And that is plan for the future, but do not plan the outcome. You know, you can plan where you're going to be and when you're going to be there, so on and so forth. Who knows what could happen in between and what delays, and it's going to take longer, and who's going to get frustrated, who's going to get hungry. Yeah.
Take snacks.
Take snacks.
Yeah, take snacks, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, really.
I'll remember that.
Plan for the future, but don't plan the outcome.
When did you learn that?
I think through recovery program. Because, see, there were so many things that were written in stone in my family of origin. Like, God bless my mother, and I know it was her way of keeping control or so on and so forth. But if we were going to have a picnic in the backyard, we had to plan it for 3 days. Because you just couldn't have peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, potato chips, and watermelon. It had to be, fried chicken, this, that, and and that's not a criticism. That's just what she knew, because she was oldest of 12 people. Yeah, and then I remember people saying to me, live one day at a time. Well, I thought, well, I got to make a dentist appointment. And, I actually think I said that. And they said, well, that's fine. You can plan for the future, but you don't plan.
You don't live in the future.
Right. You don't
live one day.
Right. You live one day at a time. So when you get to the dentist, you don't know whether you're going to have a cavity or not.
Yeah.
So that's just a silly example of how I learned. And then applying that to other things. Go to Iowa with the kids. You don't really know how that's going to work.
Now, one of the things that I became aware of late in life is the journey is as important as the destination. I was always destination focused, and I missed a lot on the journey. Today, when we travel, we don't know where we're going tomorrow.
Yeah.
We would, when we travel in the RV, we would figure out that night where we were going to be the next day. And so the journey became important.
Yeah.
And that makes a big difference. It also helped us to communicate more.
You had to.
And allowed Jeannie to have more input into the decision process. Because when I was destination focused, first of all, there was no decision. That's important things to remember. Get some trail mix.
Oh, yeah.
So you don't get hungry. Enjoy the journey. Rain doesn't have to stop you. You can have fun in the rain. Yeah. And I think we learned that at Yellowstone when we wanted to go on a ranger walk. And it was raining, and we bought ponchos.
Yeah.
And we went and enjoyed it and had a good time. And ever since then, rain has not stopped us from enjoying the day wherever we were. So yeah, it's that flexibility. It makes it easier for everybody, and it makes it more enjoyable. Yeah. Oh no, I don't know if Grandma told you this, but on almost every trip, whether it's 4 days or 3 weeks, there'll be one day where we don't get along.
I believe it.
where we irritate each other, and then we get that one day is out of the way, and we go on the rest of the way. Don't let a bad day spoil the whole vacation, the whole experience. Yeah, bad days come. Yeah, and get through them and go on. Yeah, one of the things that we've come to appreciate in our recovery program is you can start your day over any time. So a bad day doesn't have to last 24 hours. A bad day can last an hour. It doesn't have to ruin the whole day. But know that you will be okay even if there's a bad day. Get that level of comfort with your traveling partner. You can have a bad day.
You're allowed to have a bad day.
Yep.
And now Ozzy has joined us. I'm sure we can pick up the purring.
I bet
he's a loud purrer. Ozzy the cat.
Who surely has some wisdom hidden within there. But
yeah, Ozzy does. Oh, the things you've seen, Ozzy.
I would say that Ozzy would say, this is a great place to live.
He loves it here.
I think so.
I think he does. He's pretty chilled out right now.
So, do you have any other questions?
The only ones left are inspired by CMM is that if we're making the acknowledgement of we get to create our social worlds, what are you doing to create better social worlds? What do you want to create in your social worlds? Kindness, in your mind, yeah. What does a better social world look like?
Yeah, kindness and understanding and caring.
I look at it, and this is a part of my service within my recovery program. I want people to be more accepting of themselves, more accepting of others. I want them to broaden their vision, that whatever blinders they have, I want them removed. Not only to see these other things, but appreciate them. That, to me, leads to kindness. That if I have an appreciation, I'll be kind about it. So that's where I am today. I've given up trying to change the whole world.
Sure.
But I can help somebody. And it's like the story of the kid on the beach throwing the starfish back in the water, and the guy says, "You can't save them all." Nope, but I can save this one. Yeah, one person at a time. Help them to see their life in a more positive perspective, and allow them to pass that on.
I think about modeling, because what is freeing to me is that idea of I can't make everybody else care as much as I do about certain things. I can't control them. I can't force that on them. Can't convince them even, but I can care and care as much as I do, openly and visibly, and hope that gives someone else the courage to also care. Some of my other episodes are specifically talking about CMM, but also part of CMM is just having the meaningful conversation. And so the idea is that this would model to people what it looks like to have a meaningful conversation and ask the questions that you want to ask, and that other people do want to be asked of. That I believe people want to be asked about their lives, and because you learn things, you want to share it.
You do. I agree with that. People want to share. People want to be heard, and they don't know how. They don't know how to ask to be heard.
Because we're stuck in a little cycle of, how are you? Fine. How are you? Fine.
Yeah. So people have a need, actually, to be heard.
I agree.
And so that this is very positive. I think it's a very worthwhile project, John.
Thanks, Grandpa.
Yeah. I'll say one thing.
Sure.
You bring up modeling.
Yeah.
The quote is, example is not just a good teacher, it's the only teacher. And modeling really is that.
Yeah.
It's giving my example. What example am I showing? In the recovery program that we're in, I try to model. I try to be the best me I can be.
The language that I like is that you're giving other people permission.
Yes.
To do X, Y, Z, whatever it is, but not that you're an authority and they have to ask permission for you, but they maybe previously in their life never have had the space to share their story, to be heard, to listen to other people and give them that respect. You can give them permission by doing. That
to me is very important. As I said, I work with the Ala teens. We do some reading at the beginning of the meeting. And even if the teen doesn't want to read or doesn't feel comfortable reading, they have to say pass. And just saying pass gets them to have their voice heard in the room, even though they may be uncomfortable reading. That's awesome. So that is one of the things that we try to do is to here we kind of demand it of them, in a gentle way. But if you don't want to read, say pass.
Well, in my last episode with Rick, he talked about saying no from a deeper yes.
Okay.
And in a way, it's if what you need to, as a teen or whoever, what you need to say yes to is opting out of something.
Okay. Then
you're saying no, but that's allowing you to say yes to that you just need to listen right now, or you need to not speak out loud because that's going to cause you anxiety or some stress. Right. And so you're able to say no to say yes in a way.
Yeah. When the kids come into the meetings, they're generally very quiet for a few meetings, until they hear other kids tell their story. You know, child A is new, child B tells a story, and child A says, "God, that's my story."
Mm-hmm.
You know,
that's really powerful,
and it really is, and it opens up the communication. It allows them then to go from say and pass,
yeah,
to actually sharing who and what they are. I see that example all the time in our Alateen meetings. Like you say, give them permission and respectfully receive what they choose to share with you. And I understand that part of the theory.
Right. You asleep, Grammie?
You're just resting your eyes. That's another famous Martinet quote from Grammie. Is I'm just resting my eyes. We say that one all the time.
So, to give context to the people who don't know you, whenever I get a birthday card or a graduation card like I just got from you, you write in it, "Be well, be happy, be blessed." Yeah. Where does that come from?
I have no idea.
You don't know?
I don't know whether I read it.
Uh-huh.
I can't really tell you.
Yeah.
It's like, be well, be healthy, take care of yourself, be happy, see the good things that you have around you, be blessed with God's love and spirit and happiness, and know that you are blessed and loved.
Do you remember when you started writing that or using that?
Just a few years, it feels like. I don't think
That's wild, because I always remember you saying that, but also, you know.
Be reasonable.
Be reasonable. Well, that's the other one that I wanted to talk about, was be reasonable. Where'd that come from?
I think as you grew when you were together, and I think...
Well, I was going to say the context of it, what I remember, Grammie's famous quote of be reasonable, is that we would come stay with you, and we would get vanilla ice cream at night, and you would give us Oreos in little plastic bags, and we would crush them up, put them on the ice cream, and whenever we were choosing how many Oreos to put on the ice cream, you would tell us to be reasonable.
It was more, I would watch Sam, and he'd just
uh-huh.
I think
he needed to be reasonable. I didn't know if that was around before that situation, or if it came out of that.
It was probably always something that I thought of, and it's like James and I have talked about. Be reasonable means be reasonable about what you eat. Mm-hmm. Be reasonable about if you're going to drink. Be reasonable in your relationships.
In all that you do, you should be reasonable.
All that you do, because in this world we tend to buy too many shoes.
Oh yeah.
You know, or eat too much.
Yes. We overindulge.
That's the word that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Over.
Well, we were here for Christmas this past year, and we said that our New Year's resolution should be to be reasonable.
That's right.
In everything we do. So I just think it's good advice, and I think it started small, but I think you can use it in anything.
The preciousness to me of what Grandma Dolores said, you know, God's in the mess and the rest. Mm-hmm.
Is that something she said?
Yes.
Yeah.
She did. And where she got that and where it came from, I don't know, but it helped me find the balance or accept the balance and reality of life. So I think be reasonable it talks about self-discipline and self-control, and none of us have.
Because it's not saying don't indulge at all in good, wonderful things in life.
Absolutely.
But when you do, be reasonable about it.
That's right.
I think that's good advice.
Yeah, it is good advice. I just have to remember.
Right.
Because I need it too. Yeah, because I'd stay up all night and watch a series of Yellowstone.
Yellowstone. That's your show, I know.
Yeah, from the first season and episodes to the last.
I think a lot of people have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Binge watching TV.
Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely.
And you got to be reasonable.
That's right.
It's not good for you.
No, that's for sure. Yeah, in the area of your life. Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah, you didn't know what you were doing when you started that.
No.
Good.
a saying that I have from my mother that helps me a lot, is that people need love the most when they deserve it the least. And that helps me in a lot of situations where I'm dealing with someone that is irritated the living daylights out of me.
Yeah.
And it helps me to try to look at it from their perspective as to what are they going through. And most people going through anything need love. And so that saying has been very important to me.
Was that something she always said? She
said it very frequently because there usually was someone that fit the category.
Right.
Yeah.
With all our kids, somebody was.
Well, that's making me think of one that is only, 2 years old in my life, but one that Robbie actually told me from my first conversation. He told me a couple years ago was that hurt people hurt people.
Yes.
And at the time, I was hurt, and I was not interested in hearing that.
Right.
But getting some perspective, that's definitely one I think about that I feel like gives me the same message as what you're saying, is that even if I'm the one that is being hurt, helping me to see that the person that maybe hurt me is also hurting in a different way. And so wanting to give them love.
Yeah, totally agree. I use that one also. That one really helps. It helps you to understand why some people do what they do.
Yes.
That they're coming. To me, I can recognize in some people that they're coming from a place of great pain.
Yes.
And so that helps. It helps me tolerate what they may be doing that irritates me. But it puts it in a perspective of, that puts that in a perspective of how important is that, compared to where they're coming from. So.
Yeah. Well, we talked about, the role of recovery programs in Grammie's life and all the lessons learned from that. And so to me, it's the both needing to be balanced of loving people who are hurt and are hurting unconditionally and in the best ways you can, and also having boundaries and taking care of yourself in that too, which is a tricky thing.
It is. It's very hard to have that balance, and the balance is important, but both sides of the balance are also important. And, one of the things that I got out of my recovery is understanding or seeing how much I got out of doing service to others. The places where I did service, I got so much more out of it than I put into it. And it taught me things. It taught me things that I didn't fully appreciate. I learned that I couldn't do everything. And oh, by the way, you shouldn't try to do everything, because by doing everything, then it robs others of the chance to do that and to grow. And, I look back and I think I did too much for our children. I could have let them learn more. I see that today. Didn't see it at the time. It was when I was doing Al-Anon service that became apparent. And I couldn't do it all. And then I watched the people that did it and the growth that they had. And so it made me much more aware of letting people do something so that they can grow. And that was one of the big lessons I have. One of the other big lessons I have is that there are better approaches than being a bull in the china shop.
Right. Sure.
Don't watch what you break as you go through it, because there was a gentleman who I had great respect for, and I watched how he dealt with it. And he listened. He listened to all sides. He put it all together and calmly expressed what he got out of all that listening, mixed with his own ideas.
Had you maybe never seen anyone handle a situation that way? All you saw was bull in the china shop?
It didn't impress me.
Sure.
I had seen it other places.
But
not,
that one really struck
not
you.
as often. Okay. I could see him do it about every time that we were in a meeting. Well, first of all, it was his personality, but it was also his approach to it. It was very good. It was very good. One of the other things I learned in recovery is, everybody has an opinion. I no longer try to use the word opinion. Everybody has a perspective. And the perspective gives a picture. And the example that I use is, if you walk up to this house from the front door, you have one perspective of the house.
Yeah.
If you come and look at the back of the house, you have a different perspective. Now, the trick is, can I listen to multiple people with multiple perspectives and use it to give me a more complete picture of the whole thing? So it's not only of the picture of a physical entity like that.
Yeah.
It's also a picture of ideas, solutions, understanding of the problem.
When you're saying a difference between opinion and perspective, that makes me think that people are quick to dismiss other people's opinions, but to me the connotation of a perspective of that's earned almost, because it is, the connotation of it is that there's life stories behind it. Your life is what, and all these situations you've been in is what leads you to have this certain perspective on life. The same way you've all said, oh, this quote or these words or this lesson, that's your now perspective on life because of the stories that led up to that. And you don't know it, Grandpa, but you're talking CMM. All of that, because all of the models that I've talked about so far on the podcast, every single one of them, I feel like I'm repeating myself on it, but I'm they're all about giving context.
Right.
And valuing that context, and the whole claim of CMM being that we create our social worlds and at the same time are being influenced by those social worlds. So it's the idea that nothing is happening that is isolated. Right. And so your perspective might be the front of the house, and that is valid as your perspective because you've earned it. You walked up to the front of the house, however you got there, but it's not the whole house. Right. And so you want to be in conversation with other people, coordinating with other people to figure out, to make a whole picture.
Awesome. The way I joke about it is everybody has an opinion. If your opinion agrees with mine, you're brilliant. And if your opinion differs, you're wrong. I don't do that with perspectives.
Sure.
Perspectives allows me to accept other people's input, other people's view, other people's input to the whole process of understanding.
It changes how you think.
Yeah, because if you can tell the story behind your perspective or parts of it, then you can help people understand a little more why you think what you do. And it's not so easily dismissed, maybe.
A very, very early saying, two other early sayings that tie in, I think, to this wonderful conversation here is people can't know what they don't know.
People can't know what they don't know.
And just realizing that the person who walked to the front of the house can't know that in the backyard, it's totally different.
Yeah.
Right? And just stop and remember for just a second and not get angry at someone who's just talking about what the back looks like because they've never had a chance to be in the front, right? And vice versa, right? And one other thing I was going to say, an early on saying of our family, it doesn't matter just what you say, how you say it. I think when I was younger, we talked about if you bark at me, you can say the exact same words with a kind response versus a total barking response.
Well, that's my whole degree. Is that we could talk about the content, if you're a business major, or a history major, or a Spanish major, an art major, whatever, you have your content. But in every situation, it's equally important, if not more important, how you are communicating that.
Amen. Which
people are that's an abstract thing that they're just guessing at, but it's that CMM is looking at the process of communicating because it's tangible, not a literal physical sense, but it's tangible in the sense that you can grasp it as a concept.
Thank you, Abbie.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for doing this on short notice.
Oh, yeah.
Very fun.
This was really meaningful to me.
Very meaningful to me, too.